notice, like on Facebook and on NBC and ABC News, they're talking about, well, maybe in our lifetime we could be hit with an asteroid. It could take out our civilization. Are they trying to prepare us for something? Or it's strange what is going on. But you know what? If you lie long enough, no one's going to believe you when you do tell the truth. And maybe that's what they're hoping.
Well, this is it. And here's another point, and it's a good point that you just made about the government lying. If you talk to people on the street, honestly, 90% of people will not believe anything the government has to say anyway. They all think the government lies. So if the government did come out and say, yeah, we were working with aliens and we did this and we did that, do you think people really are going to believe them? And another thing is the fact that we really don't need the government to tell us that UFOs and aliens are real. Because the people that want to believe will believe, and those that don't. Simple as that. So I don't care if the government said they landed on the White House lawn. It doesn't matter to me because I already know,
Well, you know what? I hate to say it. If a person out there thinks we're the only humanoid or life, out in any solar system, out wherever, okay, then you know what? They might as well go home and have another drink because are we that naive to believe that we're the only ones? I mean, it's so many things, Clarence. It proves that either the planet has been rebooted several times, or we were visited. And going back to the Great Pyramid, going back to the Sphinx, the wear marks on the back of the Sphinx, for years they said, oh, that was caused from sand wear. Now they said, no, that's caused from the ocean. That predates it to mankind. That now they're saying that the pyramids, the Great Pyramid, is way older than they thought. Again, okay, there's no way, even if it was built when they said it was, that these slaves could haul those huge stones and blocks through the desert and then erect it. There had to be technology there that we don't have today. So I have a funny feeling that, yes, we've been visited. And if I guess I class those same type of people, and I'm sorry because there is some people listen to my show that believe the earth is flat. Well, I have to group them in with the same people that believe that the earth is flat.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that don't believe we went to the moon either.
Oh, I know that. Or
it's crazy. So crazy.
I actually had another talk show host that was buying time on my network, and I honestly had to take him off because he was getting a little bit too out there. But he was starting to tell people that, the earth is flat. We're not living. We're on a computer chip, and that the earth doesn't rotate. It doesn't turn. It's flat. And I couldn't digest it anymore. I mean, come on. I can't understand people.
Well, simple astronomy. Just go by a telescope and lay on your back and look at the stars at night. And there's no way you can dispute the earth being round and that we move and yada, yada, yada. I mean, it's so simple. It's pathetic,
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I explained to the guy, I said, hey, you're saying that the earth doesn't turn at all? Okay, it doesn't spin, doesn't do anything. And he goes, yes, it doesn't spin, it doesn't. I said, okay, then every time I've ever taken my telescope out when I was younger, I had to buy one with a motor drive on it because I was too lazy to constantly adjust it.
Exactly right.
To keep up with the earth's rotation. I mean, come on.
That's exactly right. I was just going to mention that because I got a nice, 9.25 Celestron that I use a lot, and it has to be calibrated, and it tracks by itself, and I'll be at one end of it, and by the end of the night, I'll be 45 degrees, so a complete opposite way because it's tracked that far, So, yeah.
Well, always ask somebody that believes the earth is flat, Clarence. Ask them what keeps the ocean from just going out into space.
Going up, yeah. Exactly. What keeps us on the earth.
Yeah. Or how would you go to the end of the earth? Do you fall off, and is that where we lose our ships? I don't know. I mean, some of these strange things that some people... But you have that right for that type of view.
Yeah, you do. And you can believe whatever you want to believe, But, you know, what do you do? Common sense is common sense, and that's just the way it is. You know, I'm sorry, but I don't know.
Well, you know, I don't know what guests you've had on, but I have had like Calvin Parker on, Timothy Cullen. Mm-hmm. I've had some major guests on UFOs, and, you know, being abducted and all this stuff. Talking to them, I really believe their stories. I really, especially Timothy Cullen, that had an implant removed from late Dr. Roger Lear. You know, when they sent it out to be analyzed, it was nothing that could have been compounded on Earth, according to all the labs. So I do feel that we are being, you know, how can I say it, abducted, experimented on.
Absolutely. I've had my own visitation. So, yeah, I know how that goes.
Well, you know what I call this planet the giant farm.
Yes.
Because I hate it.
Certainly is.
Sometimes I remember that old, the Twilight Zone, where the aliens came down, you know, and they gave that book to the scientists, and it said to serve man, and they tried to, you know, break the codes in it, and all these spaceships were landing on Earth at the airports, and people were going to that planet because they said how lovely it was. And then when that scientist was going up the gangplank, get on the spaceship, his assistant comes running out, "Don't get on the ship, we broke it. We broke the book." And he goes, "What?" "Yeah, to serve man as a cookbook." I mean...
yeah, exactly. They're going to eat you. Yeah.
So just because we think we're smart, I don't think maybe aliens out there, if they exist, will look at us the same way. Maybe they look at us the same way as you do that Big Mac.
Right. Well, maybe some do. You know, I can tell you that the ones that I had encountered were as friendly could be, as far as I remember anyway, you know, as far as I know. But I've had people call me, and, you know, we've talked on the show about it, and some people have had some really bad experiences. So, you know, if you believe in good and evil, I would assume that it happens in every species of life, you know, regardless. So, you know, it's very possible. Most likely probable, you know. So,
well, depending on where you come from, maybe, you know, one race might be cannibals, you know, and go around and raiding other planets for, you know, DNA and food. Now, do you mind? Do you want to talk a little bit about your encounter, or if you don't mind?
Well, okay. Basically, I'll kind of give you the long or the short, or the short or the long, however you want to look at it. My very first encounter, I was only roughly about 6 years old, and I had a orange orb, a reddish orange orb, out behind our house across a cornfield. And it was in the middle of the night, and it had lit up my room, you know, like a red flashlight kind of thing. And I stood up and was watching it out my window, and it went across the sky back and forth very, very slowly. And then it would like center off and then go down and land. And then it would rise back up, and it would do this, you know, back and forth like 2 or 3 times, until finally it went up high enough where I could almost barely see it, and then it just flashed out. And my mother had gotten up at the same time and had been standing behind me, and I didn't even know she was there. She scared me to death. And she goes, "What was that?" You know, and I about fainted because, you know, I didn't know she was there. And I'm like, I have no idea. Well, my father at the time had been working the swing shift. He worked a 3 to 11 shift. And when he got home, my mom and myself had told him about it. And he made the claim that it was a helicopter ride from the county fair. That's what he said it was. And a few weeks later, the farmer who owned the property around our house, who was cutting down his corn, stopped by the house and asked my mom and my father if anything weird was going on out there, because he had found flattened spots of corn on the far side of the field out there. And of course, my mom mentioned about the light, whatever, and he just kind of looked at it really strange, and that was about the end of it. So we wondered after that what that was all about, okay? Well, years later, I'm going to say another 6, 7 years, now that happened up in upstate New York where we lived up there. We had moved to Florida in the 70s, and we had just gotten into a brand new home, and I was right around 12 to 13 years old at this time, and I woke up in the middle of the night one night. Well, let me back up. Early that evening, my sister and I were across the road playing with a neighborhood girl, a little girl. We were playing kickball with her. And I just happened to look up above the tree line, and there was a massive disc-shaped UFO sitting right above the tree looking right at us. And I could see it so clear. I mean, I could actually count the windows that was across the front of it, And I turned around to my sister and I pointed. I go, look at that. And as soon as we turned around, it had disappeared. It was gone, out of sight. Now, I don't know if it camouflaged itself or if it just flew off and we didn't see it. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. Well, later that evening, I had gone to bed and I woke up in the middle of the night, paralyzed, totally could not move. And I'm laying there and I'm thinking to myself, what is going on? And I am just scared to death. And I tried to call and holler for my parents, and I couldn't speak. And then I realized that the bedroom light was on, and I looked over, and there's 3 entities, the Greys, as we know them, in my room. They're standing right inside my door. The next thing that happened was I heard them tell me, not as a voice, but telepathically, basically, it was in my head, just to relax, have nothing to fear, everything was going to be okay. And within a heartbeat, I was calm. I mean, just totally calm. And I asked them, what do you want? And they said, we've been watching you. We have things we want to tell you and show you, this, that, and whatever. And the last thing I remember was the fact that for whatever reason, we were going to go out my bedroom window. And I told them, do not break the glass shelf that we have underneath the window because my dad will be super upset, And I also told him, don't wake up my brother. He was sleeping in the top bunk right above me. We had bunk beds. And that's basically the last thing I remember until I woke up, a few hours later or whatever it was. And, yeah, it was crazy, really crazy stuff. But what happened to me when they took me or when I went with them, I have really no clue. I kind of blocked that out, so I really don't know, But I have had marks on my body and different other things that I've noticed that I have no explanation, where they come from and different other things. And, and I wound up with natural gifts throughout my lifetime that just have no reasoning behind them, things like artistry. I could draw like no tomorrow. I was musically inclined. Animal magnetism. You could take any type of animal. It doesn't matter what, and they would know me like I'm their brother or something. Just as friendly as can be, where no one else could get around them. Things like that. It just really strange things.
That is interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like Calvin Parker, I had him on here recently about his encounter when his acquaintance was taken off the dock and escorted basically like by 2 robot type of creatures onto a spaceship.